So for those of you who weren't here, we were talking a little bit about the emerging church and how the social gospel has replaced the real gospel. And then that brought forward issues, one of which was women's place in the church. And this book, actually, I had just gotten, so it was Divine Appointment. Well, you can see what it's called. It's written by a Christian. She's not Seventh-day Adventist, but she was heavily into the women's lib movement. And then God showed her the roots of it all. As I read this, it's a thin book. It's an easy read, but it is heavy. And there's no way I can even touch on everything that's in that book, and I don't feel like I need to. If you want to get it, you can get it from Amazon. It is interesting. But this is her perspective, and if you want a Seventh-day Adventist perspective, I'm sure that Stephen Bohr has plenty of material. And also, if you go to Audioverse, Demsteed, Laurel Demsteed, she has a series of presentations on there as well that are very interesting. And she comes to the same conclusion as to the occult and demonic realm of women being elevated in the church. Okay, so this is the first issue of Ms. Magazine in 1974, I think. And this was on the cover. Now, Gloria Steinem was the one who was over this. And you know, she was a diehard liberal feminist. And she was actually a CIA operative. She was a theosophist. And the CIA paid her to put this agenda out there, and she did that very well. As you can see on the front, there is a goddess on the front. She's Calli. And this is a Hindu goddess from around 600 BC is when it first started presented itself. And you can see the multiple arms. Can have anywhere from 4 to 8 arms on this goddess. So don't think that just because there's a difference in the count of the arms that it's a different goddess. It's not. You can also see that she's blue. And she has different things in her arms. So one of the things is, you remember the commercial from the 70s, if you're old enough? Angelique, I can bring home the bacon, I can fry it up in the pan. Okay, this is what this is about. So she works, she brings home the bacon, she cooks it up, she does the ironing, you see typing and answering the phone. She's something in the workplace. So this is that demonstrated. Now, when you look at the actual goddess Calli, you see she's holding heads. She was a warrior. She hated men. She was a destroyer. And that's the implication of the goddess that they used on Ms. Magazine to send subliminal messages as well about their agenda. We'll try this. Or not. Interesting. Okay, so Calli was called the Dark Mother and the feminine fullness of time, representing sexuality, creation, death, and destruction. The unruly black hair is a sign of disobedience and defiance. Let's see. She defied any expectations of men and male gods. And she symbolizes liberation. And Lucifer is the one who all of the occult see as the great liberator. Let's see, and she has a pointy tongue. And if you look at the pointy tongue, where else do we see pointy tongues? Where? Serpents, yes. Where in society today? Hollywood, right? Miley Cyrus, several others. Let's see, what's the rock band from the 70s? Huh? You know them. you know them. So, the Rolling Stones. Okay. He always had his tongue out. What's on their shirt for their symbol? A tongue, right? So this was their, again, demonstration of, in part, honoring this deity. And that tongue was, if they touched the tongue, then they would receive protection, perceived protection. So, all right. So the color blue, what does that mean? You see, Aladdin is blue. A lot of the superheroes are blue. If you look at a lot of the Hindu gods and such, they're blue. It's a feeling of tranquil and calmness to promote peace and relaxation. It's a divine connection, and it's eternal. So this is just as God is eternal, they apply that same concept to these goddesses and goddesses. Also means spiritual growth and becoming divine. So We talked about how some of these movements actually were from the occult. And when you look at the social justice pieces of Black Lives Matter, the leaders themselves worshipped ancestors. And this is spiritualism. And this is a spirit that was guiding them. It's not that things should not be just, but there's a spirit that's controlling the manner in which this is played out, right? And this is from an interview. It says, we speak their names. Let's see. In an interview posted to social media, she says that they discuss the spiritual component of the movement, explaining the practices and rituals performed to remember and invoke the spirits of deceased African Americans. We speak their names, and you kind of invoke the spirit, and then their spirits actually become present with you, all right? And then she outlined that she was raised Jehovah's Witness, and ancestral worship became really important as she got older. She said she felt the responsibility to honor the deceased politically and spiritually. So do you see how Satan uses things that can be good and helpful to be just in all aspects, to turn it into something that's now a political movement that is based on hate? So that's where the lines, it crosses a line. And it's not just in that topic, it's really in anything that we saw a lot of things politically, but those were the questions that they had mostly. All right. So when you look at the Theosophical societies, this is just another occult. So we've moved from one occult to another briefly. And it says the same goals are as all the other belief systems which aim to combine all humanity into a genderless blob and all existing religions into one world global religion. You'll see more of this later when we go into our real presentation. This is because all are Luciferian in nature. In the first wave, feminists, spiritualists, and theosophists all united under the idea of Christianity as oppressors of women, which naturally led to the idea of Lucifer being a liberator of women. Theosophy continued to contribute to feminism heavily through the 1930s, and then a little bit thereafter to today, but not as much. Wicca has kind of come in and taken that place when you look at goddess worship.
Hi, thanks for watching. If you like what you're learning, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, then subscribe. What's stopping you? If you want to share this with someone who might be interested in what this content is, then do that too. And if you have a topic that you want covered, then put that in the comment. We have more to explore. Thanks again and have a great day.
All right, and then they have a women's Bible. Now we're back to women's suffrage movement, which is a lot of what this book is talking about. This is the lady, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. She says the Women's Bible is a two-part nonfiction book written by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and a committee of 26 women, published in 1895 and 1898 to challenge the traditional position of religious orthodoxy that women should be subservient to men. These women they did not like the patriarchal system in the Bible. So they rewrote the Bible, like what we learned last week or 2 weeks ago. You rewrite the Bible according to culture. The Bible did not agree with their movement, so they rewrote it. And you can get this Bible today on Amazon, as you can see, in all sorts of versions. All right. And so the author says in the introduction, this is not quoted. I need to go back and get the quotes, but this is contained in the book, and that's what I quoted. It says the Women's Bible, she explains her motivations for revising the Bible, saying the only thing holding back women's liberation was traditional Christianity, and that the Bible, all Christian churches, and the canon law are at the basis for the belief that men and women belong to separate, divinely ordained spheres, and that women's liberation had to destroy traditional Christianity and canon law in order to achieve its goals. And that's what you're seeing today in the church as women are lifted up and placed into pastoral positions. We're destroying the hierarchy, the patriarchy, the system that God himself set up. She also says those who have the divine insight to translate, transpose, and transfigure this mournful object of pity, referring to the biblical woman, into an exalted, dignified personage worthy our worship as the mother of the race, are to be congratulated as having share of the occult mystic power of the Eastern Mahatmas. So women should be worshipped, and they can have the same powers as the Mahatmas. So of this revision committee, there were 26 women, 8 were spiritualists, 4 atheists, 3 Quakers, and all were liberal progressive feminists. All right, so when you look at Alice A. Bailey's 10-point plan, this is really small, I'm sorry. So number 3 is destroy the Judeo-Christian family structure or the traditional Christian family. So this is exactly what happened in this suffrage movement. It destroyed the family. These women who were the main architects of this movement that has now become entrenched may have started out loosely as Christians, but ended up denying Christianity, becoming theosophists and occultists, and transitioned from their marriages. They left their marriages, left their children, and engaged in relationships with women. They were all about free love because, remember, the Bible constrained women, so they didn't like that system. You should be able to love whoever you want. What are we seeing in society today? So all of this is what we're seeing as a result of Alice A. Bailey's plan. And number 4 is, if sex is free, then make abortion legal and make it easy. These midwives who were called witches in the last century also performed abortions. So now what do you see? You have Planned Parenthood in so many places. And when you connect it to Bill Gates, it's in his family, whoever's leading that is his sister or somebody. They're all using these things as an agenda to further Alice A. Bailey's 10-point plan. It's all connected. All right. And no values for families, make divorce free and easy. And then make homosexuality an alternative lifestyle. In other words, normalize all this stuff. And what did we see after the elevation of women? Right behind it was LGBTQ+ into the church. All right. And then number 9 is create an interfaith movement. This is going to bring us more back to our topic. But it's create an interfaith movement. And that's what we're going to be talking about today as we pick up from this same thing from 2 weeks ago. All right. So when you look at this, the other thing about this transgender and such is there's also gender fluidity. So that's the goal of the UN, gender fluidity. No male, no female. You can be either or both, right? We've seen that played out. When you look at Shiva, this stuff all goes back to this kind of stuff. You look at Shiva, Shiva is male and female. There's a part and a counterpart. And the picture here on the right is Shiva. You have the phallic symbol, and then you have the womb. And then where else do you see this? It's at the Vatican, right? And it's in a lot of places. But when you start attuning your eyes to things, then you're going to start applying what you're learning and where we are in time to what you're seeing. Does that make sense? Okay. So this, when you look, there's so much, but I just want to do little bullet points. The one on the left is, she's Lord of the Dance, all right? And this is in a lot of political places. It's symbolic, there's a meaning, there's an agenda. This is the visual symbol of their agenda for the world. Now, she's dancing, and when you look at the right, you have a bull. This was the opening ceremonies to the Olympics, the Commonwealth Games in 2022. And I don't know if you saw that or heard much about it, but they brought out a bull. Again, it had to do with women's suffrage. The women were in chains and they were pulling the bull. And worship he was angry and snorting, red eyes. And the only thing that calmed him was worship. And it was a woman who calmed him, right? So all of these things are playing out in every arena if we're able to see it. Now here we have, I forget her name, but she's in the program Wicked, in the movie Wicked. And she's very talented, but she's a witch. And she's a lesbian. And now she's going to be playing Jesus Christ in a play in Hollywood. So this is it's a Hegelian model, right? Everything gets flipped. And this is where we are in time. The agenda, the UN agenda has now really come to full fruition. Another one of the Alice A. Bailey's 10 points is debase the arts and make them mad, right? Mad as in crazy, not angry. This is the opening ceremony to the Olympics last year. If you heard anything about that, this is a mock Last Supper in which they had lesbians and such, the lesbian playing Jesus. And so you have a blue man. We know that that's a Hindu kind of god. So this is where we are. So let's move on. But I'm sorry that they weren't here, but that is the reason. That's why women have a place in the church. We have a voice, but our position is determined by God alone, and it's a protectant. It's a protectant for the church family. It's a protectant to society. It's a protectant to our individual families.